Today is a historic day for commercial aviation. I'm here in Everett, Washington, where in a few short hours, the very last 747 to ever be built, the one that's right behind me, will be delivered to Atlas Air. This has been a moment of celebration. I'm joined by hundreds of current and former Boeing employees, the very people who helped make the 747 the legend that it is today. And they've thrown one hell of a party to honor the Queen. But there's also this sense of melancholy in the air. After all, this marks the end of 50+ years of production and closes the book on arguably the most successful airplane program in history. Year after year, fewer and fewer of these birds are gracing the skies, and it's clear that the jet's entered its twilight years. In response, avgeeks worldwide have clamored to buy tickets on 747s in an effort to fly it one last time before they're gone for good. And all of this has me wondering, how much time do we have? When will the very last 747 be retired, and who will be the one to fly it? Let me explain. Now, before hopping into the video, I have to admit that I'm a bit of a klutz. I'm constantly losing stuff, especially my headphones. I've lost 3 pairs of very expensive earbuds in the last 2 years alone, which hasn't been great for my wallet. But then I tried Raycon, today's sponsor. Their everyday earbuds offer quality sound without breaking the bank. I really appreciate their punchy bass, which sounds great when I listen to hip-hop or EDM, my 2 favorite genres. The earbuds also do a great job of isolating sound and feature excellent battery life. I take a lot of long walks and love to hike, and they've never died on me once, a testament to their ability to last 8 hours on a single charge. Raycon makes all sorts of great audio devices, from earbuds to speakers to gaming headsets. And because they're all fairly priced, you could theoretically get one of each and still pay less than if you bought a single device from another brand. Plus, if you don't love them, they offer free and easy returns. So if you're ready to buy something small with a big impact, click on my link in the description, buyraycon.com/KobeExplains, to get an additional 15% off your Raycon order. In order to figure out who will fly the very last 747, it's important to find out who owns the newest 747s. The 747 family has been around for over 50 years, and it's composed of 6 distinct variants. Of these variants, the 747-8 is the most up-to-date. It shares its heritage with the ultra-modern 787, borrowing its engines and taking design cues from its wings, hence why it's called the -8. In conjunction, these changes make it 16% more efficient than previous 747s. It stands to reason then that the very last airline to fly the 747 will be a -8 operator. But despite the plane's advancements, it hasn't sold all that well. Today, just 3 airlines fly it: Lufthansa, Air China, and Korean Air. Of these 3, Korean is the most likely to retire them first. The airline's already made its intentions clear. It plans to phase out the 747 by 2031, a mere 8 years away. So that leaves just 2 options, Lufthansa and Air China. And I know most of you probably think that Lufthansa would be the obvious answer. For one, it was the launch customer of the -8 and worked hand-in-hand with Boeing to define the jet. Its executives have praised its ability to carry a large number of business travelers, an extremely important customer segment for the airline, and it's backed up this praise with its checkbook. The carrier flies 19 747-8s, the most of any airline. Unlike Korean, it hasn't set a retirement date. In fact, they're giving the jet a new lease on life, updating them with new premium cabins starting this year. But while Lufthansa might seem like a shoo-in to be the last 747 airline, there are a few things working against them. For one, the airline's drawn scrutiny for flying a huge fleet of quad jets. They fly 747s, A340s, A380s, all of whom are giant gas-guzzling machines. Now, Lufthansa is the German flag carrier, and Germany receives the bulk of its energy needs from Russia. And as we've seen over the last year, this isn't such a great thing. As such, Lufthansa's hastened its commitment to phase out big quad jets, and they've heavily invested in large, efficient twins like the 777X. This plane is an explicit replacement for the 747, and it'll hit Lufthansa's fleet in just a few short years. Meanwhile, you have Air China, who has a very good reason to keep their 747s around. They're actually the smallest 747-8 operator, owning just 7 planes. However, China's skies are becoming extremely congested. It's set to overtake the US as the world's largest aviation market by 2024. Now, China's current airport infrastructure isn't capable of handling that growth. So in response, the government's announced plans to nearly double the number of airports in the country by the year 2035. But such massive projects are rarely completed on schedule, and it could take decades before the Chinese finish their mission. In the meantime, China needs a way to handle greater passenger volume within the constraints of its existing infrastructure. This is exactly the kind of environment in which the 747 excels. It can carry twice the number of passengers as a typical narrowbody, helping airlines reduce their slot and gate usage. In theory, this should help limit congestion at airports. We've actually seen Japan deploy this tactic in the past. They've long used widebodies on domestic routes, since the country's mountainous terrain makes it difficult to build new airports. Air China could do the same, and they could even buy up Korea's 747s to expand their footprint. But here's the problem. In this scenario, the 747 remains little more than a stopgap for Air China, a way to bridge the gap until more airports are built. Meanwhile, Lufthansa clearly sees the 747 as a long-term investment. Retrofitting its cabins can cost tens of millions of dollars, but Lufthansa is doing that across the entire fleet. It's for this reason that Lufthansa seems more likely to be the last 747 airline. But when will its 747s actually be retired? Well, like I mentioned, Lufthansa hasn't made its intentions public, so we're gonna have to deduce it ourselves. The airline received its last 747-8 in 2015, and airlines typically retire jets after around 25 years of service. As such, we can peg 2040 as a sensible retirement date. So that's it. We have our answer, right? Well, not so fast. You see, there are two pesky passenger 747s that haven't yet been delivered. Now, these jets were actually built years ago, originally ordered by and built for Russia's Transaero. However, the airline went belly up before they could take delivery. For years, these jets were orphaned and have kind of just sat idle, waiting for Boeing to find a new customer. It took some time, but they finally found a taker in 2017, the United States Air Force. Ever since, these jets have undergone retrofitting and rigorous testing. Once complete, they'll start carrying the President of the United States as the new Air Force Ones. Now, the current Air Force One fleet is based off the 747-200, a much older 747 variant. And this is part of the reason why the Dash 8 was picked to be its successor. The Air Force already has plenty of experience working with the jet. Sure, there are other more efficient jumbos that could have taken up the mantle, like the 777X, but the 747-8 is a better-known commodity and has an excellent safety record. Plus, its four-engine design adds extra redundancy in the event of an engine failure, making it an ideal presidential transport. Now, the main reason the Air Force is retiring its current fleet is because spare parts are becoming harder to find, and it's likely they'll want to hold on to these new 747s for just as long. As it stands today, the new fleet will be introduced in 2026, and at that point, the current fleet will have reached 36 years in age. If the new jets serve for a similar amount of time, we can expect them to be flying until around the mid-2060s. So if you miss your chance to fly Lufthansa's 747s, all you'll have to do is become president or become part of the White House press corps to fly the jumbo. This is a rather romantic idea. The last passenger 747 will be carrying the president of the country where aviation began. But you'll notice I said passenger 747.
The last 747 to ever be built, the one right behind me, is a freighter. And we need to talk about this freighter variant because it'll lead us to the answer that we're actually looking for.
Cargo aircraft tend to stick around for much longer than their passenger counterparts, mainly because they aren't nearly as active. Airlines need to keep planes in the air as much as possible to drive revenue, but cargo aircraft spend a lot more time on the ground. Now, the reason why this is complicated and is something I'll cover in a future video. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. But for now, all you need to know is that cargo jets spend much less time in the air on any given day. Because of this, they experience less wear and tear, and their maintenance costs are spread out over a longer duration. What's more, cargo operators are generally less sensitive than airlines when it comes to fuel price, so they can profitably operate their gas guzzlers for a much longer duration. FedEx, for instance, just retired its last DC-10 at the ripe old age of 35. Now, let's say that this very last 747 freighter that's being delivered today flies for 35 years. That means it'll last until 2060, and you might have noticed that that would be an earlier retirement than the new Air Force Ones. But there's actually a very good chance that this freighter outlives other cargo aircraft. You see, one of the 747's defining features is its nose. Its nose swings up and open, allowing massive or oddly shaped items to be loaded onto its cargo deck. This unique feature is made possible by the plane's hump, since the cockpit, and all the critical wiring that runs to it, sits above the main deck. Now, the only other mass-produced planes that have this feature are military jets like the C-5 and old Soviet transporters like the AN-124. These aircraft also have their cockpits above the main cargo bay. And with the industry shifting away from jumbos, it's unlikely we'll see more of these humpback planes in the near future. As such, this functionality will essentially be lost once the 747's retired. To preserve this key feature, freightliners may hold on to their 747s for longer than normal. As such, it seems possible that they could live upwards of 50 years. That means that the very last 747 would be retired sometime in the 2070s, and it'll probably fly for a carrier like UPS, who has a strong maintenance network to keep the plane in tip-top shape well into its old age. So, what are the takeaways from this exercise? Well, even though 747 production is ending, the 747 has a long life ahead.
This 747 right here might be the very last one off the line, but you'll still be able to hitch a ride on one for at least 15 more years. And it'll continue to grace the skies for long thereafter. So while the end of 747 production is sad, I think we can all take solace in knowing that the Queen of the Skies will still be spreading its wings for decades to come.
If you're watching this video 50 years from now, how'd I do? Let me know in the comments section below. And if you're still stuck here in the present, let me know if you've ever flown on a 747 and what it was like. The last time I flew on a 747 was about 15 years ago, so I am well overdue for my next journey. Thank you so much to Boeing for inviting me out to their special event, and thank you so much to my patrons for making this video possible. If you'd like to join the Patreon community and support my work in the process, go ahead and check out this link right here. And as always, if you learned something new today, leave a like and subscribe to keep learning.
And until I see you again, don't forget to look up.